if you download Cursor from the website, you will see a software that looks something like this, right? So we're going to go build something from scratch, but this is just for you to just get an idea of how the tool looks like and what you're going to do. So if you look at this, you have your code. So I'm going to hit on plus. So you have your code on the left, you have your chat on the right, and you can go and there are a few things you can do. You can like tag specific files and you can just say at and say, okay, I want to tag this file that I have. So I'll say index.txt. And once you tag, then you can say, then it understands which file you're tagging and you can say, go change something in this page, right? Add a rectangle here. So, oh, my computer is a bit slow. Add a rectangle to this page or something like that. So you could talk to AI, and what it'll do is it'll just go and so right now it uses the 4.0 model, and it goes and takes your request. It goes and creates this. It still takes a bit of time, and see, it gives you this code. And what you can do is just apply this code into your thing if you want. So there are two views to it. So right now I type this view in the chat. So chat is like your chat GPT. So you could ask specific questions. So you could be like, okay, I have this question. Now you just highlight it and be like, explain what this is. So and then it'll tell you like what this part of the code is. But the main thing that we are going to be using is the composer. So composer is how you type something and it'll modify your code and just give you that. So in this case, let's say I want to, so we are going to build this again from scratch, but okay, so I'm going to show you how I got here and stuff. We're going to go into that. So let's say this is the UI and I want to add another like form field here. All I have to do is go into Cursor and say, just tag where I'm going to add the form field. I know I need to add it in app.tsx. I'm going to show you why it's app.tsx and just going forward, but just I'm going to say add a button that says generate again. So if you just say something like that, what it does is it just goes and creates that button for you. And you just have to see it do the magic. And it says that if you can see, to add a generate button to you can follow
Yeah,
the
much
pattern.
better. Zoomed in is much better.
Much better. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so you just accept the changes and then you go back and you'll see. So what I did here is I'm just like running the code so that it's accessible here. But I know don't have to worry about this just yet. I will go into how to do this and explain it more clearly. But as of now, I just wanted to show you like how to interact with AI. That's all I wanted to show you here. So don't let this see. Simply when I do that, you'll see this button got added. So the way you're talking to AI is just prompting, just saying, add this button, do this thing, and then it does it for you. Just accept the changes and your changes are there. That's basically like how you interact with AI. And I'm going to show you like how to set up this whole Figma plugin to where it is right now. And then let's do that right now. First thing, we are not going to start from scratch in terms of we're not going to be creating all these files here, right? If you go into Figma's documentation, they already have suggested starter files that you can start from. You don't have to like start from scratch. So the file that we are going to use is this template. It's a template created by someone who's not from Figma. This person by Nurski. I don't know if you're aware of GitHub. So GitHub is like a place where all the code is stored, like you can store your repositories, and it's mostly for developers. So they've given this template, Figma plugin React template. So it uses React. React is a technology from Facebook, which has one of the biggest communities out there in terms of like packages and libraries that you can use. And they created this plugin template that you can simply use. So if you follow along from here with me, you will be able to set up let's get the basic Figma plugin working in Figma. So from this point, see if you can follow along with me, yeah? And if you have any questions, just let me know and I can help you out. The first thing is what we are going to do is we are just going to take this template and run this plugin. So this plugin already does something. It's a very basic standard template plugin. So we're going to run this. So that's the first objective. So we can do that by just like copying this code over here. It's just a link to this project. And if you go into your terminal, I assume everyone here is a Mac user. If you're not a Mac user, you're probably using, command line. So once you're here, just go into, okay, so here I'm just in my root folder. So wherever you are, just go paste git clone. I'm going to explain what git is. So just paste this thing, just git clone and paste your project, and then write name of the plugin that you want to give. So in this case, I'm just going to call it Figma background plugin. So because we're going to try and build a background generator. So okay, let me just explain what this command is. So git is a version history. So Git it's a package of several different things. The mainly we use Git is for version history. In this case, what Git is doing is it's taking this package from here in this link, and then it's creating a copy on your local directory, and then it's renaming it with the stuff that you're mentioning after it. So it's copying the files from here and putting it and renaming. That's all you're doing, right? So when you press enter, so you can see that it's cloning into this folder. It did all this stuff. And we can just go into that folder we can just say open that on your Mac, it will say open. So what we'll do is just open that folder you have. And within that folder, you will see Figma background plugin. So this is the one that I just created. You can go into this and see, okay, you can see all these files that are already imported and downloaded from what we just saw on GitHub. And if you were to just use this file into Cursor, all you need to do is just like open Cursor. I'm going to open a new window here and just drag that folder into Cursor. That's it. So you will have your folder working in Cursor, and you can see all these files within this. Okay. So the files, they are organized in different ways. In different templates, you'll see the organization could change. But in this specific plugin, I will tell you the organization, you could go pretty far with just this template. I have built, like in my company, we built like the whole copywriter plugin using this template. There are lots of good plugins built on this template. So if you understand this template's file structure or just basic idea of where things are where, you can build quite a lot of stuff. So if you see in the source directory, there's two main folders that you're interested in. So you're interested in the app and the plugin. So what it does is within the app, you have a thing called components. And within components, you have the app.tsx. So all you need to know is that this app.tsx is the front of what inside your Figma. So whatever you see here, like inside whatever this window is stored on app.tsx. So the code over here is reflected over here. That's all you need to know. And then you have a folder called plugin, called controller. And within controller is all the functioning behind it. It has things like what to do when you click on that button. It creates the rectangles, or the actions that to be performed are inside controller. So you don't have to go into what is inside this thing. You don't have to go into what is written here. None of that is required. All you need to know is that this is the front of the window. This is the logic of the window. With just this much, what you can do is when you talk to AI, when you're making changes to the front, you just tag that file and be like, hey, I want to make this change to the front end. So just do this change. When you want to make changes to the logic, you just tag AI and say, okay, I want to make changes to the logic, and just explain what you want to do here. And I'm going to show that right now.
Can you just show the terminal once again? Folks, just take a screenshot of the commands if you missed it. So basically what we did was git clone. Okay, it cloned it. Then we did open dot, which is opening the folder that we just created. So three things we've gone through, okay, folks, so far. One, cloning. Okay. Then basically once you've cloned the folder that you've cloned it in, open that in Cursor. And the next part you need to know is the two important files, right? It's just the index.tsx, which is that front end, and then the controller.tsx, which is the logic behind. Muskan, the problem you did was you didn't put a dot in the thing. So you got to say open space dot, right? So these commands have to be like exact because this is the terminal. Yeah, that's just the thing. So in fact, you could just do git clone, and then that folder, it gets created somewhere on your desktop, and you can literally just open that folder and move it to open in cursor. Just drag it to cursor.
So Muskan said something about didn't understand. Yeah, I forgot to put the dot. The dot refers to the current directory.
Cool, folks. And just an FYI, right? Even if you missed some parts, what I think is really important for you guys is to understand what is where, right? Because you will always be able to go back and watch Ashwin's channel and actually follow through again, right? If you want to do something. But what you want to know is what's the important parts of it. So index.tsx, that's important because that's the front end of your plugin. What is shown there? Controller.ts is important because that's the logic that goes in the back, right? So whenever you're talking to AI, if you want to change something in the front end, you tag this file and say, change this. If you want to change something in the logic, you tag this file and say, change this. Yeah, all right.
See some funny comments in the chat. Okay, so I hope the cloning part is anyone, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, going back, again, recap what we did. We took something from GitHub, a template. We cloned it into our local folder, and we just imported that folder. That's all we did so far. We did not, we didn't write a single piece of code, right? So within Cursor, again, as I was saying before, you have two files, app.tsx and the controller.ts. These are the two files. And whatever changes that we're going to make are going to be within these two files. So now the first thing I'm going to show you is how to run this plugin, how to run this plugin and show what this template has to offer, right? Again, there is within Cursor, you have a terminal. Just to give you an idea of what a terminal is, right? A terminal, it's the same as your terminal that you opened to git clone, but this terminal is inside Cursor. I think someone also asked in the chat, if terminal or if Cursor also has a terminal. Yes, it does, and this is what we are using. Okay, one thing on the chat, Prabal, you just have to say git clone and then paste the link to the project. Okay, I'm going to stop again, after one small thing that I share right now, and then we can clarify any questions, right? So once you have your project set up on the terminal, you just have to say npm install. So what that does is it just installs all the dependencies that this project has. It just basically, it's a one-time thing that you need to do always when you clone any project from online. It leaves out the dependencies as it just stores that these are the dependencies needed, but it doesn't have the dependencies on the project folder itself. So you just have to run this npm install once and it just installs everything. And now immediately you'll see all the errors are gone and the project is now ready to test, right? So when you do, again, I'm going to paste these commands in the chat and I will share later a glossary or a book of all the commands, a list of all the commands that you need. It's not many, it's just 4 or 5 commands that you need to know. So once you do npm install, you just have to do npm run another command, build watch. How do I know these commands? It's all written over here. It's all written when you go into package.json, you'll see that it's written, you will see the script written somewhere. See, npm run build.watch. So I know this command is written inside the thing, so that's how I know this, but you will see that command. And once I run this, you'll see that the thing is running. And now, before I go and show you how to import it in Figma, I want to stop and ask, so far, is everyone clear on what's happening? Do you have any questions so far? Where is the cloned folder? So just make sure when you're cloning it to, so here I cloned it into my home directory, right? So if I'm inside a directory, inside home, then when you're cloning there, you will find your project there. So in terminal, what do we write again, please? In Cursor, you're writing npm run build watch. And before that, you're running npm install. First install, then run.
And if you want to make it easier, folks, I think Ashwin's also pasted it in the chat. So there's npm install. And Ashwin, I think, yeah, there's the other one.
It shows command not found. I think Srujan, you probably did not install Node.js. Node.js it's in the video that I'd sent before. You just have to go to nodejs.com and install it, then you will have NPM working. Chetna, I'm hoping your coding, whatever you learned earlier, would help you today to understand this better.
Yeah, Chetna has a massive advantage. Those of you who have a coding background, huge advantage today. Yeah.
Totally. Aditya, yeah, that's a great idea. You can also download the zip, but then, yeah, you need to bring that zip into Cursor then once you install it in a folder. So again, yeah, well, thanks for sharing the link. So you don't have to fork it, Prabal. Forking is, it'll create a GitHub project within GitHub, and you don't have to fork it, just clone it. They're different concepts. Forking is, they're similar because you're taking the same project and then you're just building on top of it. But in this case, we are just like storing it offline, and we're going to probably change the whole thing. So just clone it. Run the code on terminal. What to search on Cursor? I didn't get your question, Ritika. So download it from here. How to check if NPM is not RPM, it's NPM. NPM is already installed. You have to, so if you're in your terminal and you just type NPM, you will not see command not found. You'll see all this, just say NPM command. And then you'll say, it'll give you all these things that you can use, but we are not going to use any of this. You just have to say NPM. And then if it's not installed, it'll say NPM not installed. How to get this section that you have at the bottom of your cursor window. This is the terminal. So you can just go to terminal and say new terminal. That'll open this part. And every time you say new terminal, you'll find like tabs here on the right. It'll keep stacking. So this is the one that we are running right now. I hope that answered your question. Okay. Madhur, you're referring to the chat on the right. So I'll also leave a couple of comments here. What's the difference between cursor terminal and Mac terminal? They're the same. It's just that you're using the terminal inside cursor, and that has access to only your project. If you're accessing cursor, the terminal outside, then you'll have to make sure you're in the right project directory. That's the only difference, but it's the same functionality. No change, no difference. Any further questions? So who's gotten it so far? Do you have a thumbs up? Just leave a thumbs up. So far, people have been able to get to this stage. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. You can see some thumbs up going. Is there any part of this you would like me to repeat? Like any part of this, just leave on the chat if you would like me to repeat a part of this again. Muskan, you have to first run npm install, and then, okay, npm install, make sure you are in the right directory and you're doing npm install, and then make sure you run the build watch. This is one of the, so when you're inside the right directory, you will show you. Yeah. So in this case, I may put the project folder inside Figma plugin background plugin. So you will also have to make sure you're inside that directory. Run the code in the terminal, what to search on cursor. Oh, Francis, good catch on the running 2 times. Yeah, it's each one command. So npm install is one command, and npm run build watch is a second command. Like, don't mix them up. Many things are showing up here. Okay, so Ishita, your problem is that you haven't done npm install. And looks like,
I think it's just the bottom and top window would be that. Maybe firstly terminal. You got to hit the terminal and say new terminal. So that'll bring your bottom window there.
how's everyone else doing?
Cool. I think Ashwin, we could move forward. I think there's a few devs. There's a few devs here, so I can see Aditya, Francis, folks helping out in the chat. Folks, any others of you who are devs, just help out a little bit in the chat. And folks, anybody who has questions, post in the chat, right? We'll try to resolve it in the chat. Usually it's just things being typed out wrong and this thing. It's just a first time issue, right? Definitely don't, like, I can understand it makes you feel like shit, such a small thing. But actually, if you really zoom out and think about it, guys, that's the whole point of AI now, right? That's the future we're headed towards, which is why should we learn how the computer works? The computer should learn how we work, right? So yes, a lot of the stuff after this, the AI does it, but at least the baseline, you got to set it up such that within this environment, you can do what you want. I see comment from Abhishek, bro, when did you learn cursor? I did computer science, no? So I actually didn't learn cursor. I just set it up and played around with it. Yeah. I didn't have to learn so much. But it's just I've not made anything crazy. That's the difference. Yeah. So that way I'm on this exact same page as you guys. Yeah.
So it's
Cool.
to install Node.js, you just have to download it. That's it. Just download and install. And there's no, I can go to Node.js website and download and install. Okay, so maybe let's continue to the next milestone and see and check in again. So the devs here can also follow along. So what we did was we just ran the code, and now the code is running and successfully. When you say npm run build watch, the watch part is just saying that when you make a change, it will make those changes like dynamically. So now what I have to do is go into Figma, and like inside Figma, I go into plugins and I go into development, and I'm going to say import plugin from manifest. So when you select that, you have, so in this case, my thing was in home directory. So I'm just going to go into the home directory, and this is my folder that I just created, which I cloned. I'm going to go into this folder, and within that folder, I have a manifest JSON. Clear so far? You just have to select this manifest JSON file and open it. That's it. And when you open it, you will see this kind of window. I'm going to remove these two because this is something I did before for the workshop. Let me remove it. I'm going to keep this because it's related to my work. Okay, so Figma plugin template. This is the one that I just imported. And I can see the path also. You can see users, my folder, and then Figma background plugin. This is the one that I created. So you can see that the plugin is imported and now ready for me to access. Yeah. So when I open it, you should see something like this. So this is the default template. What the template gives is just gives us a rectangle creator. How's the chat going? Rubble, you've copied the URL wrong. That's why it says repository not found. So make sure you paste the right URL from the GitHub project and paste it in your terminal when you clone it. Code generally opens VS Code. The code is a custom command. You can configure it. So when you install cursor, it'll ask you if you want to change the default code command to cursor instead of VS Code, and you say yes, and it does it. So Siddharth, so an error occurred while loading the plugin environment. Did you do your npm install? Make sure you've installed. Okay. Like we really haven't changed anything in the program. So right now, just all you need to do is just see if you've done any step that is not here, right? All you're doing is download, do npm install, and npm run build watch. That's all you need to do. Nothing else is needed to be done. You should have no errors. If not, like maybe try to clone again, because maybe you might have accidentally done something which you shouldn't have done, maybe changed something. So just try it again. You could spend some time trying to find what you did, but it's just faster to just clone it again and just run it again. Who's got it so far? Any thumbs up on the chat? People who have gotten it solved? Okay, so that's great. After we open the JSON file, where's the JSON file? Great, I can see some thumbs up. Awesome. There's manifest.json. Yeah, so you should open manifest.json within Figma. Within Figma, you go into plugins, you go into development, you go say import plugin from manifest, and then you select your manifest.json file. Okay, sweet, 4 people, 5 including Siddharth. Okay, so we can go. Okay, so far people have installed. Great. If you have any questions, just ask in the chat again, and let me see if I can help. And so I'm going to open the plugin again, right? So when I open this Figma plugin template, you see this rectangle creator. And what this basically does is when I say create, it creates these 5 rectangles. Simple stuff, right? And it creates at the first like 0.0 in the page. I'm going to delete this. This is something I created before. So it created something on the first page at wherever 0.0 is. So if you see the exposition of this would probably be 0.0. See on the right? So it creates 5 rectangles and places them like right next to each other. That's all it did. So is everyone okay so far? Should I move to the next step? Can I take that silence as a yes? Okay, cool. So next, let's say you want to, now is where you're like talking to AI and asking it to do everything else. So far, all we did was the setup, right? So from this point onwards, you don't have to do much. You just have to tell AI what to do. So I'm going to open this plugin template again, so it's clearly visible. So what I want to say, let's say I want to change the color of those rectangles created, right? So I'm just going to say, go back to cursor, and I'm going to open my AI chat. I can do that by hitting Command I on my keyboard. And I just have to, as I told you, you need to tag the file that is related to this. So I'm going to tag app.tsx. And I'm also going to tag controller.tsx because that's where the functionality lives. And once I tag these two, I'm going to say, now make the rectangles blue in color, for example, instead of orange, right? So just be a little more clearer, generated rectangles, blue in color instead of orange. And what it'll do is it'll figure out what code needs to be added, what needs to be done. It'll figure this out. One thing here you need to keep in mind is you have to break down your task. You could, like, when you say like 10 things to it, there is the chances of it making a mistake are like really high. Once you see, in this case, when I just said change the color to blue instead of orange, it did some things. Like, you don't have to see why it did, what it did. You just know that all you need to check is there no error? Like if it shows red over here, then it means there's an error. If there's no error, you can just accept it, and that's it. And then when you go back into your Figma and create, see, that's it. Now you can say lots of things that are very simple at this point. You can say how you want to space the rectangles, do you want circles instead of rectangles? Do you want how big you want the rectangles to be? You could change anything you want. And it's the same process. You just have to go and type here and ask it to do, right? A couple of things I want to mention here. So wait, I'm not seeing the chat. So a couple of things I want to mention here is every time you make something like this, try and open a new chat so that you start from a clean slate, and then every time you try a new thing, start from a new chat. Every time you build on something existing, you can continue in the chat sequence. And the benefit of doing that is, let's say for example, if you have 3, 4 things, and at one point you got an error. So you can always go back to the previous one and the point before an error, right? Another like good practice to follow here is when you land an error, don't try and pile on top of that error. Don't try and be like, okay, if that error is happening, just don't ask AI to go fix that error. And then it throws another error, then don't go ask it to fix that error again. And don't try to do that. Error piling doesn't help. So instead, try to do one-shot prompting, which is like when you see an error, go back to the state where there was no error, try a different prompt or try a different model. So you can either try a different model or try a different prompt. In this case, I'm using 4.0. You can also use Claude 3.5. Both are like equally good. But if one throws an error, you can try the other one, and sometimes it works, right? Everyone good so far? Okay. Can someone share the GitHub link? Let me share that link again. One sec. Okay, so it made the change and gave confirmation, but it's not reflecting in Figma after running. So did you say accept all? Like when you say accept all, if it's already running here, so when you say build watch, you know that it's running. So you see that it's successfully in 480 seconds or something like that. This shows that it's running. And when you go into Figma, you will see it reflect. Just try and generate it again. Or if you want, just try and run the last plugin again. So this will restart it. In some cases, this might work. So when you say create, it will create blue rectangles. And now I can show you another like simple example, right? So instead of saying blue rectangles, I'm just going to say, again, remember to tag app.tsx and remember to tag the controller.tsx because that's where the front end and the logic is. And just say, instead of blue rectangles, make them yellow and place it in the selected frame. So I'm saying don't place it in random position. In whatever place that I selected, place those yellow rectangles. See, at this point onwards, it's all like discovery, right? You're just going to try a lot of things And some of them is just going to be like, make it pop. Yeah, do that. The one thing about Figma's plugin environment is that it's limiting actually. Figma recently came up with another environment where you could do much more complex stuff. But if you're like using this to build like general web applications, and I can send you another video that I made for how to do it. You have so many possibilities. You can do 3D engines and all of that stuff. I have some of that in my YouTube as well if you are interested in expanding from here. Okay, some slow requests here. Maybe let me try a different. So I don't know why this, maybe the cursor's requests are jammed. I suppose what we can do is just use a different model. So I'm going to use Claude 3.5. And then in such cases, it works. Or maybe my computer is slow. Yeah, it worked. Okay, so I asked it to change the blue rectangles to yellow and place them in the selected frame. And when I do it, it just, yeah. See, at this point, I'm not even looking at the code. I don't even have to look at the code. I just have to see if it had an error or not. See, and there's no error here. I'm just going to accept it. That's it. And then when I go back into Figma, run last plugin. So there's one thing I can tell you here is there's also, 1 second, I think there is an error. Okay, so maybe this is a good point for me to show you how to handle errors. So if you have errors like this, what you can do is you can always go back to this checkout. And then what it'll do is it'll go back to the previous state when there was no error. See, it again went back to the previous state. And this checkout is super helpful because what you don't want to do is once you have an error, just keep piling on top of that errors. So right now, I believe the error happened because it used, I didn't see the exact error, but I would go back to 4.0. I think 4.0 is a much better model than than Claude when it comes to in this environment. In Next.js environment, it was slightly different. But let's try it again with this and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to select this. See, it made some changes, rectangle created, added these like little things. You can ask it to remove it later. But then when I paste it, okay, right now it pasted not in the selected frame, it pasted elsewhere. But then there are no errors. I can always like go back to AI and say, let me show you how I would fix a problem like this. Run last plugin. I'm making sure I have something selected. And then I say create. So I'm going to go into cursor and I will explain what exactly happened. So I will say, I will tag the two files that were there. And then I will say rectangles are created in yellow, but they are not created in the frame, in the selected frame, right? And because I used 4.0 before, I'm going to continue to use 4.0. And just say that, right? So then it understands, okay, there is a problem. And then, okay, then it tries to understand, it tries to predict what that problem could have been because of. And see, it did something. It updated the logic to append rectangles to selected frame. And it said, okay, it did a selected frame check. The code now checks if the selected frame is a frame. And if nothing is selected, a notification prompts. And it appends the frame to the selected frame. Okay, so let's go try it out. And there's a bit of this trial and error that you need to do. But this is the whole part of building something. So I'm going to run a plugin again. See, it worked. So this is how you go back and forth and talk to AI, feed it what's happening, give it a bit of picture of what it did, and then it understands and then it goes builds for you. So see, this is basically, if you see the videos that I've posted on my YouTube and stuff, I've literally not touched code. Like this is everything that I've built. I've built a chessboard. I've built like Angry Birds clone. Through the whole process, I just use the same process. The same thing about going to chat, typing what I want, going back to this and seeing if I got what I want. If I didn't get what I want, go back and tell AI, look, this is a problem, fix this, and then it fixed it. And this, with time, you will start to get more familiar with like why these problems are happening. And that will give you so much more knowledge and make you so much faster at this. But this initial learning curve is just for you to understand like how to work with it and what kind of errors happen. So that's the part of this learning. Okay, I can see some rectangles. Thanks, Aditya. And great, it's give all the rectangles a border radius. Sweet. Yeah, imagine like a lot of plugins were developed without AI. That's very, very time consuming. Like we definitely take it for granted. Okay. All right, so far we've made rectangles, right? So let's try to push it a little further. I know some of you are just watching. How do I see this plugin on Figma? You could just go to Figma and go to plugin, import plugin from manifest, and then just install that plugin. Okay, so if you followed along so far, Abhinav, what do you say? We proceed, keep going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so on cursor, so let's try to do this.